All right, everyone, Paul McCartney must be kind of sad today because Article 13 was up for a vote to fast-track it. That is, it would have become law, and that was defeated by a considerable amount, which means now we have more time to put pressure on European governments, on people that are actually in the EU's like parliament or whatever the fuck they have, and so forth. We now have a chance to continue to work to defeat them and prevent Article 13 from ever becoming law. Again, Paul McCartney comes out and he says, well, you must pass Article 13. It will help to protect musicians. It's like, no, you dolt. It's not going to protect any musicians. It's going to protect the musical companies. It's going to protect like a Sony or something. They're the ones that gain a benefit from that. But mostly this is, you've got to understand the scope of Article 13. Any creative work, it doesn't, a song, an image, I guess it could be text, whatever it happens to be, certainly video, if it's been created. Websites would have to put up both automated and manual checking systems for all content that could potentially be posted to sites, and it would make them responsible for that content that's posted. Essentially, right now you have a safe harbor situation, where, for instance, if I post something copyrighted on YouTube, I can get in trouble maybe, but YouTube can't be sued for that. All they are is a platform where people upload things. As long as they've taken it down within a reasonable frame of time, no repercussions on them. That is a reasonable system that we currently have. The people of the EU, what they've decided is, hey, what about when stuff goes viral? Like, think of Matt Fury and Pepe, basically, the frog that he created. It gets infinitely replicated across millions and millions and millions of posts. You can't even fathom how much money he would have made if he were getting, a penny per post or something. The problem is that the same mechanism that would be used to give him that would have kept it from going viral in the first place. And this is why the EU's stance on this doesn't make sense. The stance of the more globalist side is, hey, content creators have a right to capitalize upon their work. It sounds really good on paper now, doesn't it? Absolutely, absolutely it does. The problem is that it would squish out virality for those memes, and what it would do is just force people to develop the means in order to skirt the censorship anyway. And it would allow censorship too. Look, do you honestly believe that governments would not take advantage of the basic premise of Article 13 in order to censor opinions that they don't like? What do you think the next step is? The next step is it wouldn't have to do with copyright, it would have to do with content the EU wants banned. I guarantee that would be the next step. We can't let that happen. We have to fight against it. Paul McCartney's like, well, you must pass it. No, Paul McCartney's a salad. He's the least of the Beatles. Like, Ringo's still alive. Ringo's the talented Beatle that's still above ground. And John and George are dead, unfortunately. Some people think Paul is dead. He's certainly brain dead if he's backing Article 13. He's completely wrong. I would expect nothing less from someone who's like, well, people probably post my shit without permission. I'm losing out on money since I haven't done anything substantial since the 1980s. The last time I did anything that anyone remembers, I was doing a duet with Michael Jackson about skin colors. It's like, that's the problem with people like Paul McCartney. He's lived long enough, as John Lennon predicted, to become like sappy and overtly romantic. He's seen as a relic of the 60s and 70s. The problem is there is no modern Paul McCartney. People still primarily, if they're looking at Paul McCartney, an image of him, they're looking at an image of him from the 1960s. They're looking at him when he was in his 20s. Or up through till the 80s when he was doing some of the slightly rockier, admittedly better stuff than when he was a Beatle. No, John and George were the ones writing all the best songs for the Beatles, for the most part, other than Helter Skelter. Okay, he gets a pass on Helter Skelter. But really, my least favorite Beatle. And, I was a big-time Beatles fan back, when I was maybe 20, 21. I was much more into that side of music then. Now I lean more towards, like, gothic music, it's plenty of stuff from the 80s. 90s rock as well. I'm getting back into that a little bit since I'm realizing it's better than the fucking shit that they make today. Don't have nostalgia, but, give credit for Audio Slave or something garbage. But, no, Paul McCartney. What's he known for mainly? Oh, Yesterday. Oh, yeah. Here's another love song. I put 3 or 4 of them on the album. Then I killed the Beatles off. People blame Yoko. It's actually Paul McCartney was trying to stymie some of the creative work of especially George and Ringo, and people were pissed off at him. Rightfully so. And I think he was the one that handled the money and stuff, so it's a little bit fun. It's a little bit like Judas, maybe. John Lennon's Jesus Christ, and he gets to be Judas, I suppose. You could put that in the Manson mythology. It'd be quite funny. Someone should write a fanfic like that. But yeah, no, Paul McCartney doesn't know what he's talking about. He essentially, You're saying, I remember, back in the day, you're listening to the Beatles, you're listening to some of their 60s stuff. It's like Taxman. It's like, hey, the government's not good. You should distrust them. They're trying to stop us from doing this LSD. It's like question authority based. It's sort of hippie-ish. And they brought a lot of the Eastern stuff that fused with the hippie movement over for the first time in the mid-60s anyway. Started smoking weed and listening to Hare Krishna music and shit. And now it's like, oh, trust the government. It's benevolent. It'll help the Copyright Association here. It'll help these big-name artists that have already made it. But the thing is, the Beatles were originally like struggle music, almost. They're like, oh my God, they're taking all of our money, and it's a hard day's night. I'm working constantly. Now, basically, at the end of the month, I've got like 10% of my actual income because the government has so many taxes and fees on our music. They're like, oh, well, we single-handedly, didn't they get awards because the amount of tax revenue from their music pouring into Britain was so significant that it actually helped to rebuild like the UK's economy to some degree, and so they got like awards, and I think John Lennon like refused his or threw it in the toilet or something. And it's like, yeah, that's the opposite of Paul McCartney, who's like, he likes it, he likes the limelight. I remember, wasn't it with the Firemen or something? I know years ago he released another goofy album, and it was like, it was a little bit like, imagine the Beatles fused with the Talking Heads at times. Honestly, it wasn't bad, but it's like, it's not the sort of stuff that people are going to really listen to. I don't even think that he had a single charting from it. He's a has-been. In the definition of popularity, he is. He's still Paul McCartney, the Beatle. And so why the fuck should I care what he says on Article 13? You think he knows how to meme? He doesn't know how to make a viral meme or something. He probably doesn't even know how to check his email on his own. He's got problems. No, it's funny to see him get old enough to be completely a sellout. He's been kind of a sellout for years, but this takes the cake. Can all the young people of Europe understand what's going on? He's a rich old dude, like many other rich old dudes, and they want to strangulate the internet. That's fundamentally what it boils down to. The EU's people thought, oh, we'll get Paul McCartney to pen a letter. It'll be more youth appeal for Article 13. Wow, because Paul McCartney really appeals to the youth. Yeah, to some degree. As a Beatle, 50 years ago, not in the present tense. It's hilarious to see them make mistake after mistake. But no, I'm glad Article 13 was at least temporarily stopped, but keep up the pressure. If you're in Europe, you need to write every politician you know. You need to raise holy hells, have little hashtags and stuff. Activate, go on a march, hold a protest, whatever you have to do within the bounds of legality, of course, disclaimer. But yeah, you should definitely do that. Americans should too. It would affect us. It would affect the availability of European content. It would certainly affect the availability of our content in Europe. Like for me, it's like the Europeans, they can't fine me for posting something online. They can't, do anything legally to me because I'm in the United States. But they can keep Europeans from visiting my pages. Be a little bit of a problem. They can block out alt tech, which is probably another weaponized purpose to Article 13. They've done this before. What was SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, all of these other things, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, ultimately, it all boils down to trying to abuse individuals. It's not actually going to help a private individual who they made a cartoon and it went viral and now they managed to get money from it. That's never going to happen. Who exactly of those little creators is actually going to be able to take advantage of this system? Oh, are they going to be able to tweet at their local police, hey, someone stole my copyrighted work, look into this for me? It's not going to happen. That's about all. Peace out.